Ambassador Lee Hana felt her heart racing as she gazed through the massive viewports of the diplomatic vessel Unity Dawn. Outside, the stars seemed to shimmer with anticipation. Today would change everything for humanity. After decades of wondering, if they were alone in the universe, first contact was finally happening. The bridge buzzed with nervous energy. Captain Park adjusted his uniform for the 10th time, while Communications Officer Kim ran final system checks. Everyone knew this moment would be remembered forever. Hana had made a decision that surprised many. She brought her children along. 12-year-old Yuki sat quietly reading about xenobiology on her tablet, while 10-year-old Taro pressed his face against the observation windows, watching for signs of the approaching alien fleet. "Mom, are you sure they'll be friendly?" Yuki asked, looking up from her research about different theoretical alien species. Hana knelt beside her daughter, smoothing down her black hair. "We hope so, sweetheart. That's why we're here, to show them the best of humanity, and what's better than our future generation." The ship's sensors detected movement in the distance. 3 massive vessels emerged from hyperspace, their dark hulls gleaming under the light of nearby stars. The Korvac Empire had arrived. These ships were unlike anything humans had ever built. Angular, predatory, covered in what looked like natural armor plating. They moved through space like hunting creatures, silent and purposeful. Taro gasped as the lead ship grew larger in the viewport. "It's huge! Look at those markings. They look like battle scars." The communications array crackled to life. A deep, gravelly voice filled the bridge, speaking in heavily accented but understandable English. "Human vessel, prepare for boarding. We come to evaluate your species." Captain Park exchanged glances with Ambassador Hana. The word evaluate hadn't been in their diplomatic briefings, but there was no turning back now. 20 minutes later, the airlocks connected with metallic clangs that echoed throughout the ship. The first Korvac to step aboard made everyone take an involuntary step backward. General Vorth stood nearly 7 feet tall, his reptilian features sharp and intimidating. Thick scales covered his body like natural armor, shifting from dark green to amber in the ship's lighting. His yellow eyes swept the room, calculating and cold. Behind him came 4 more Korvacs, each carrying weapons that hummed with unknown energy. Their movements were precise, military, predatory. They weren't just diplomats. They were warriors evaluating potential prey. "I am General Vorth of the Korvac Dominion Fleet," the leader announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed without question. "Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel. This grants you audience with the Empire." Ambassador Hana stepped forward with practiced diplomatic grace. "General Vorth, welcome aboard Unity Dawn. I'm Ambassador Lee Hana, representing Earth and all of humanity. We are honored by this historic meeting." But Vorth's attention had already moved past her, his yellow eyes fixed on something that made his expression shift from neutral evaluation to visible disgust. There, standing quietly beside their mother, were Yuki and Taro. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The other Korvacs also noticed the children, their scaled faces showing similar reactions of shock and offense. In their culture, younglings were considered weakness incarnate, hidden away in underground chambers until they survived brutal trials that proved their worth to the clan. "What is the meaning of this insult?" Vorth's voice carried a dangerous edge that made the human security team reach for their weapons. "You bring hatchlings to a military evaluation? Do you mock the Korvac Empire?" Captain Park started to step forward, but Ambassador Hana held up her hand. "General, these are my children. In human culture, important moments are shared with family. They represent our future." "Your future." Vorth's laugh was harsh, like metal scraping against stone. "Weakness breeds only more weakness. No respectable species displays their failures so openly." The alien general began moving toward the observation bay, where the children stood. His massive form cast shadows across the floor as his claws clicked against the metal deck plating. The other Korvacs followed, forming an intimidating semicircle. Yuki instinctively moved slightly in front of her younger brother, though she didn't appear frightened. Taro, meanwhile, seemed fascinated by the alien's appearance, his scientific curiosity overriding any fear. You insult us by bringing these weak hatchlings, Vorth growled, now looming directly over the children. His claws extended slowly, designed to terrify. In Korvax society, this display had never failed to make younglings cower and beg for mercy. He leaned down, bringing his predatory face within inches of Yuki's, expecting her to crumble under the psychological pressure. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Every human held their breath, waiting for screams or tears that would confirm humanity's weakness in alien minds. Instead, Yuki calmly tilted her head and looked up at the massive reptilian warrior with genuine concern in her dark eyes. "Are you having a bad day? You seem really upset about something." The silence that followed Yuki's innocent question stretched across the bridge like a taut wire. General Vorth's yellow eyes widened in disbelief. No youngling had ever responded to his intimidation display with concern for his emotional well-being. His scales shifted color slightly, betraying confusion beneath his warrior exterior. Taro stepped closer to his sister, but not out of fear. His eyes sparkled with scientific curiosity as he studied the massive alien before them. "Wow, your threat display is really interesting," he said, pulling out a small notebook he always carried. "Is that how your species shows dominance?" "We learned about behavioral displays in school last month." The 10-year-old began sketching the Korvax posture, completely absorbed in documenting this first-hand encounter with alien psychology. "The way your scales change color when you're agitated is fascinating. It's like a mood ring, but biological. Do all Korvax do this, or is it just the warriors?" General Vorth looked back at his fellow Korvax, seeking some explanation for this bizarre reaction. Lieutenant Krex, his second-in-command, merely shrugged his massive shoulders. Nothing in their military training had prepared them for children who treated their most fearsome displays as educational opportunities. You should be afraid," Vorth stammered, his confidence shaken. "I am a warrior of the Dominion fleet. I have conquered 17 star systems." "That's really impressive," Yuki nodded politely. "But you still seem stressed. Maybe you should try some deep breathing exercises. Our school counselor taught us that anger usually comes from feeling hurt or misunderstood." The absurdity of receiving emotional advice from a 12-year-old human made Vorth's tactical mind short-circuit. Frustrated, he reached out with his massive clawed hand to grab Yuki's shoulder, intending to demonstrate his physical superiority through intimidation. But Yuki had been taking self-defense classes since she was 8, as her father always taught. She didn't try to fight the larger opponent's strength. Instead, she simply stepped back at an angle, grasping Vorth's wrist and using his own momentum against him. The basic redirect technique sent the 7-foot alien stumbling forward, off balance and confused. Vorth caught himself against a bulkhead, staring at his hand in shock. A human hatchling had just countered a Korvax warrior's grab. The other aliens exchanged worried glances. If their general couldn't intimidate human younglings, what did that say about humanity's potential as warriors? The commotion attracted attention from other parts of the ship. 14-year-old Minho rushed into the observation bay, his engineering toolkit still strapped around his waist. He'd been helping the maintenance crew calibrate the new quantum communication array when he heard raised voices. Behind him came twins Jiwon and Jihu, both 13 and part of the ship's botanical research team. They'd been cataloging plant samples in the hydroponics bay when the ship's internal sensors detected elevated stress levels in the diplomatic section. Instead of running away when they saw the massive aliens, the 3 newcomers immediately moved. To support Yuki and Taro, they formed a protective semicircle, not through fear but through the instinctive human response to protect their younger friends. "What's going on here?" Minho asked, his engineer's mind already analyzing the situation. He noticed the Korvax' aggressive postures, the extended claws, and the way they'd cornered the younger children. "Are these guys bothering you?" Ji-won, always the more outspoken of the twins, crossed her arms and studied the aliens with botanical precision. "They look angry. Is this some kind of territorial display, like when male gorillas beat their chests?" Her brother Jihu nodded thoughtfully. "The coloration changes in their scales suggest heightened emotional states. It's similar to chromatophore responses in Earth cephalopods." General Vorth found himself being scientifically analyzed by human younglings as if he were a specimen in their biology class. The degradation of his authority was complete and utterly humiliating. "You're not very good at this intimidation thing," Mignot observed casually, pulling out his tablet to document the encounter. His fingers moved quickly across the screen, uploading video and data to the ship's network. "This is definitely going viral on the human networks. Alien warriors confused by polite children. That's going to get millions of views." The twins exchanged amused glances. "Should we tell them that human children are actually pretty tough?" Ji-won whispered to her brother. "Nah, let them figure it out," Ji-hoo replied with a grin. Lieutenant Krex leaned toward his general, speaking in their native language, but Taro had been studying linguistics algorithms and recognized several words. "Are they planning something?" he asked innocently. "Because if you're going to try more intimidation tactics, you might want to know that human children have survived ice ages, predators, and basically everything evolution could throw at us for thousands of years. We're kind of built to adapt." Yuki nodded in agreement. "Plus, we've all watched way scarier stuff in movies. Have you seen the dinosaur films? Those were terrifying, but also really cool." The Korvac warriors found themselves in an impossible situation. Their most effective psychological weapons had not only failed, but were being critiqued by their intended victims. Worse, other crew members were starting to gather, drawn by the commotion. Captain Park appeared in the doorway, followed by several human security officers. But instead of finding a crisis requiring military intervention, he discovered 5 human children casually discussing alien psychology while a group of confused Korvac warriors stood around looking lost. "Everything okay here?" the captain asked, though his tone suggested he was trying not to laugh. "We're fine, Captain Park," Yuki replied cheerfully. "We're just teaching our new friends about human social customs. I think there might have been some cultural misunderstandings." General Vorth's pride couldn't handle any more embarrassment. Being outmaneuvered by human children in front of his warriors was the ultimate disgrace. His scales darkened to an angry crimson as he made a decision that would haunt the Korvac Empire for generations. "Enough of this mockery," he snarled, activating his wrist communicator. "Computer seal observation deck. Authorization Vorth Alpha 7. The massive blast doors slammed shut with a thunderous clang, cutting off the children from the rest of the ship. Emergency lights bathed the room in an eerie red glow as containment protocols engaged. The 5 human children found themselves trapped with 6 increasingly desperate Korvac warriors. "This space is now declared a dominance challenge zone," Vorth announced, his voice echoing off the metal walls. "By Korvac law, none may leave until proper hierarchy is established." Lieutenant Krex activated a portable holoprojector, and suddenly the room filled with terrifying images. Massive space predators with razor teeth materialized around the children, their roars shaking the deck plates. The holographic monsters lunged and snapped, designed to break the spirit of any youngling, but instead of screaming, Taro walked right through one of the creatures, his hand passing harmlessly through the projection. "Cool special effects," he said, studying the light patterns. "The resolution is incredible. What kind of processing power does this need?" Ji-won reached out to touch a holographic space dragon, watching her hand pass through its glowing scales. "The physics are all wrong, though. These creatures couldn't actually exist with those proportions. The square cube law would make them collapse under their own weight." General Vorth growled in frustration and activated the room's communication jamming system. Then he ordered his warriors to separate the children, dragging them to different corners of the observation deck. The plan was simple. Isolated and alone, the human younglings would finally break. "Listen carefully, hatchlings," Vorth's voice boomed through the room's speakers. "Your families above think you are safe, but we can make them suffer for your defiance. Surrender your pride, admit human weakness, and perhaps we will show mercy." Instead of fear, this threat sparked something else entirely in the children: protective anger and stubborn determination. Yuki, pressed against the far wall by 2 Korvac guards, began to think strategically. Her father had always said that panic was the enemy of problem-solving. "Guys," she called out calmly, "remember what we learned in crisis management class. Step 1, assess resources. Step 2, communicate. Step 3. Adapt and overcome. Minho, trapped near the environmental control panel, realized his position wasn't random. It was an opportunity. While his Korvac guard focused on the holographic displays meant to terrorize him, the young engineer quietly examined the wall systems. His tablet, tucked in his tool belt, connected wirelessly to the ship's secondary networks. "I've got partial access to maintenance protocols," he whispered, his fingers dancing across his tablet's screen. "The isolation system has a back door for emergency repairs." Taro, pinned in the corner by Lieutenant Krex, had been observing the room's layout with his usual scientific precision. "The ventilation system connects to the main ship network," he said quietly. "If we can access it, we can probably communicate with the outside." The twins, Ji-won and Ji-hoo, found themselves near the room's cleaning supply storage. As botanists, they knew chemistry better than most adults. Ji-hoo recognized the janitorial supplies immediately. Industrial cleaners, solvents, and maintenance chemicals that could be incredibly useful in the right combinations. "Sister," he whispered, "remember the experiment we did last month with pH indicators?" Ji-won's eyes lit up with understanding. "The one that created that awful smell? Oh, this is going to be interesting." General Vorth watched his psychological warfare fail spectacularly. Instead of breaking down, the human younglings were problem-solving. Their calm communication and strategic thinking unnerved his warriors, who had never encountered prey that refused to act like victims. Minho's engineering skills proved invaluable. Using coding knowledge he'd learned from online tutorials and programming forums, he began hacking the room's secondary systems. His fingers moved quickly across his tablet, bypassing security protocols that the Korvacs hadn't bothered to update. "I'm in," he announced quietly. "Environmental controls, lighting, even the holographic system, it's all connected to the same network." Yuki coordinated their efforts like a seasoned commander. "Minho, can you disable their holograms? Taro, start working on communications. Twins, what can you make with those supplies?" The room's temperature began to fluctuate as Minho gained control of the environmental systems. The terrifying holograms flickered and distorted, then disappeared entirely as he rerouted their power to more useful systems. Ji-won and Ji-hoo worked quickly with the cleaning supplies, mixing compounds that would create a harmless but incredibly potent irritant. The chemical reaction would produce a smell so terrible that even the Korvac's superior filtering systems couldn't handle it. "This should clear the room pretty fast," Ji-hoo grinned, mixing solutions in a maintenance bucket. Taro managed to jury-rig a communication device using spare electronics from the room's broken equipment. His voice crackled through the ship's comm system. "Captain Park, this is Taro in the observation deck. We're okay, but the Korvacs have locked us in. We're working on getting out." Outside the sealed room, alarms blared throughout Unity Dawn. Captain Park coordinated with Ambassador Hana and the ship's security team, trying every method to break through the blast doors. But the Korvac locking system was military-grade, designed to withstand boarding actions. "Sir," reported Chief Engineer Kim, "the blast doors are on independent power. We'd need plasma cutters, and that would take hours." Inside the observation deck, the children had turned their prison into their fortress. Minho controlled the environmental systems, making life uncomfortable for their captors. The twins' chemical weapon filled the air with an unbearable stench. That forced the Korvacs to retreat to the far end of the room. Taro maintained communication with the outside, updating their families on their progress. And Yuki? She walked calmly up to General Vorth, who was now pressed against the far wall trying to breathe through his uniform's emergency filter. "General," she said politely, "would you like to discuss terms of surrender?" What started as a simple intimidation tactic had become the Korvac Empire's worst nightmare. Taro's makeshift communication device wasn't just reaching Unity Dawn's bridge. It had somehow connected to the ship's main quantum communication array, broadcasting their situation across the entire galaxy. "Oh, wow," Taro said, staring at his improvised device in amazement. "I think I accidentally tapped into the galactic network. This signal is going everywhere." Within minutes, the kindergarten incident was spreading like wildfire across social media platforms, used by dozens of alien species. The Zalarian News Network picked it up first, followed by the Andromedian Broadcasting Corporation. Soon, beings across 3 star systems were watching live footage of 5 human children outsmarting elite Korvac warriors. The hashtag #OnHumanKidsVsAliens started trending on GalacticNet. Memes began appearing faster than the moderators could track them. One popular image showed General Vorth's confused face with the caption, "When you try to intimidate a species that survived extinction events for breakfast." Minho had been busy with his own project while monitoring the social media explosion. Using spare components from the room's broken equipment and his engineering toolkit, he constructed something that looked like a science fair project, but packed serious punch. "Guys, step back from the Korvacs," he warned, holding up a device that hummed with electrical energy. "I built an electromagnetic pulse generator. It should disable their weapons and armor without hurting them." General Vorth's eyes widened as he recognized the threat. Impossible. Human technology is primitive. You cannot have such capability. "Dude, I learned this from online tutorials," Minho shrugged. "There's this amazing thing called the Internet, where humans share knowledge freely. You should try it sometime." He activated the device. A pulse of electromagnetic energy swept through the room, and every piece of Korvac technology suddenly went dead. Their energy weapons powered down with disappointed whines. Their armor's active systems shut off, leaving them wearing nothing but heavy, unpowered metal suits. The twins' chemical warfare had reached peak effectiveness. The smell they'd created was so intense that even the ship's air recycling system couldn't handle it. The mixture of industrial cleaners and botanical compounds produced an odor that seemed to attack every sense at once. "What is that horrific stench?" Lieutenant Krex gasped, his respirator struggling to filter the air. "Oh, that's just ammonia, mixed with sulfur compounds and some organic acids we extracted from the hydroponics waste," G1 explained cheerfully. "It's completely harmless, but it smells like a spaceport garbage dump mixed with rotten eggs and gym socks." Jihu added proudly, "We calculated the molecular dispersal rate to ensure maximum coverage with minimal actual danger. It's all very scientific." The Korvac warriors had retreated as far as possible, pressed against the blast doors they'd used to trap the children. Their intimidating formation had collapsed into a huddle of coughing, wheezing aliens trying to breathe through improvised filters. But Yuki's psychological campaign proved most devastating of all. She stood calmly in the center of the room, completely unbothered by the chaos around her, and began dismantling Korvac culture with simple logic. "You know," she said conversationally, "in your own culture, strength is the only thing that matters. Right? The strong rule, the weak serve?" General Vorth nodded weakly, too busy trying to breathe to argue. "So by your own standards, if you can't intimidate human children, what does that make you?" Yuki continued. "I mean, we're just kids. We don't have weapons or armor or military training. Yet here we are, and there you are, hiding in the corner." Betitha. Logic was inescapable and brutal. By Korvac cultural standards, their failure to dominate human younglings marked them as the weakest members of their society. The shame would follow them for the rest of their lives. "Furthermore," Yuki added, now fully in her element, "the fact that you needed to lock us in here and use weapons and scary holograms against children suggests you were afraid of us from the beginning. That's not strength. That's insecurity." Taro, monitoring the communication feeds, started laughing. "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. The Andromedian comedians are having a field day with this. Listen to this joke. How many Korvac warriors does it take to intimidate a human child? Apparently, more than 6. The galactic audience was loving every moment. Species that had feared the Korvac Empire for centuries were suddenly seeing them as bumbling bullies who couldn't handle a group of youngsters armed with science projects and cleaning supplies. That's when the reinforcements arrived. The blast. Doors finally opened with a pneumatic hiss, revealing Admiral Thex and a full squad of Korvac Special Forces. They'd come prepared for a hostage rescue, expecting to find their warriors holding terrorized human children. Instead, they found the opposite. General Vorth and his team huddled in the corner, gasping for breath, their weapons disabled, their armor powerless. In the center of the room, 5 human children sat calmly around Minho's tablet, watching their own situation go viral across the galaxy. "Status report," Admiral Thex demanded, his voice muffled by his emergency respirator. "Sir, General Vorth wheezed. "The situation is complicated." "Let me explain," Yuki offered helpfully, standing up and brushing dust off her clothes. "Your warriors tried to intimidate us using fear tactics that work on Korvac children, but human children are different. We've been dealing with monsters. Under the bed, homework deadlines and cafeteria food our whole lives. Your psychological warfare is honestly pretty amateur level." Taro looked up from his tablet, where he was reading the latest social media updates. "Oh, and Admiral, you might want to check Galactic Net. The Terran Embassy just issued a statement. Apparently this incident has been classified as a cultural learning opportunity rather than an act of aggression. They're actually thanking you for helping demonstrate human adaptability to the galactic community." The new arrivals stared at the scene in disbelief. Their elite warriors, veterans of countless campaigns, had been effectively neutralized by a group of human youngsters using nothing but teamwork, basic science, and strategic thinking. Minho held up his EMP device with a grin. "Just so you know, this baby has enough charge for 3 more pulses. Your move, Admiral." Admiral Thex looked at his disabled warriors, then at the confident human children, then at his own reflection in the room's polished walls. For the first time in his military career, he was completely out of his depth. "I think they're learning," Taro commented quietly, watching the frustration and confusion play across the aliens' faces through the security feed, still broadcasting to billions of viewers across the galaxy. 3 days after the kindergarten incident, the massive Korvac command vessel Dominion's Fist arrived at the diplomatic zone. Supreme Commander Keth, leader of the Korvac High Command, had traveled personally to investigate what was being called the greatest military embarrassment in their empire's 1,000-year history. The footage had spread to every corner of the galaxy. Alien comedians were making jokes about it. Military academies were studying it as an example of tactical failure. Children across dozens of species were asking their parents why the scary Korvacs couldn't handle human kids. Supreme Commander. Keth strode onto Unity Dawn's bridge like a storm cloud given form. His scales were black with silver edges, marking him as the oldest and most experienced warrior in the fleet. Behind him came a full honor guard, and what appeared to be Korvac scientists carrying recording equipment. Ambassador Hana greeted him with diplomatic courtesy, but the tension was obvious. Everyone knew this meeting could determine whether humanity joined the galactic community as friends or faced conquest as enemies. "Where are the younglings?" Keth demanded, without preamble. "Captain?" Park gestured toward the observation lounge, where the 5 children sat doing homework as if nothing unusual had happened. Yuki was helping Taro with math problems, while Minho sketched improvements to his EMP device. The twins were cataloging plant samples they'd collected from the ship's hydroponics bay. Keth stared at them for a long moment, trying to reconcile these ordinary-looking human offspring with the tactical geniuses who had humiliated his best warriors. These small beings defeated 6 armed Korvac soldiers. Well, Yuki looked up from Taro's homework. "We didn't really defeat anyone. We just didn't let them scare us. There's a difference." The Supreme Commander's scientific advisors immediately began taking notes. Dr. Vexra, the Empire's leading expert on xenopsychology, stepped forward with obvious fascination. "How is this possible? Korvac younglings would have surrendered immediately when faced with adult warriors." "Maybe that's the problem," Minho suggested, looking up from his sketches. "You teach your kids to give up when things get tough. We learn to adapt and figure things out. Human children attend educational institutions from age 5, Jihu added helpfully. We're taught problem-solving, teamwork, and critical thinking as basic skills. Plus, G1 continued, our parents don't hide us away. We participate in family decisions, community activities, and learn by doing rather than just being told what to think." Supreme Commander Keth found himself in the unprecedented position of taking notes on child-rearing techniques. Everything about human development contradicted Korvac wisdom, yet the results spoke for themselves. The court-martial proceedings for General Vorth were broadcast live across the Empire. Instead of the expected execution for military failure, something extraordinary happened. Vorth stood before the tribunal and requested permission to study human educational methods. "Supreme Commander," he said, his voice carrying new humility, I have served the Empire for 30 years. I have conquered star systems and broken the spirits of countless enemies. But these human younglings taught me something I never learned in all my battles, that true strength comes from adaptation, not domination. The Korvac High Council deliberated for hours while the galaxy watched. When they emerged, Supreme Commander Keth made an announcement that shocked everyone. The Korvac Empire hereby requests formal cultural exchange with humanity, he declared. We wish to learn how a species produces individuals of such capability at such young ages. Dr. Vexra became the first Korvac to study human child development. She spent weeks interviewing the children, their parents, and their teachers. Her reports revolutionized Korvac society. Human offspring are not hidden until they prove worthy, she explained to the High Council. They are included, educated, and expected to contribute from the beginning. This creates confidence, adaptability, and the ability to work together toward common goals. The changes came quickly. For the first time in Korvac history, younglings were brought out of the underground chambers. They attended council meetings, participated in planning sessions, and were taught to question rather than simply obey. The transformation wasn't easy. Many adult Korvacs struggled with the concept of listening to their offspring's opinions, but the results were undeniable. Young Korvacs who grew up with human-influenced education showed remarkable innovation and problem-solving abilities. 6 months later, the first mixed-species diplomatic conference took place aboard Unity Dawn. Young Korvacs stood beside human children, working together on solutions to galactic challenges. Yuki and Taro received the newly created Junior Ambassador medals from the Galactic Council. The ceremony was broadcast to billions of beings across the galaxy, showing that wisdom could come from unexpected sources. But the most touching moment came afterward, in the ship's recreation area. Ambassador Hana watched as Yuki taught a group of young Korvacs how to play cooperative games instead of the traditional combat trials that had defined their species for centuries. See, the goal isn't to beat each other, Yuki explained patiently to a young Korvac named Zektar. The goal is for everyone to succeed together. When one person wins, everyone wins. Zektar's scales shifted to colors his parents had never seen, patterns that indicated wonder and joy rather than aggression or submission. This is better than fighting, he admitted quietly. Taro was nearby, showing another group of young aliens how to build simple electronics projects. The cool thing about sharing knowledge, he said, is that when you teach someone something, you don't lose it. You both have it. General Vorth, now serving as cultural liaison rather than military commander, approached Ambassador Hana with something that might have been a smile on his reptilian features. Your younglings have done more to change our empire than 1,000 years of conquest, he said quietly. They have shown us that true strength is not about making others fear you. It's about making everyone stronger. Hana smiled as she watched the mixed group of human and Korvac children working together on a project to design better hydroponic systems for long space voyages. Sometimes, she told the former general, the smallest humans carry the biggest lessons. The incident that started as an attempt to intimidate human children had become the foundation for a new type of galactic civilization, one where cooperation replaced conquest, and where the wisdom of youth was valued alongside the experience of age. And in classrooms across the galaxy, children of dozens of species learned about the day when 5 human kids changed the course of history simply by refusing to be afraid. The end.